What are my picks for the 10 best tribute bands on YouTube? Stick around, we're going to find out. Hi everyone, John Lang here, back again. We're going to talk about tribute bands today, and my first experience with tribute bands came, I was fresh out of high school back in the early 80s, and I guess I'm kind of showing my age here, but anyway, I was up in Nebraska in a band called the Glass Onion Band, and we played some originals, some covers. We had a booking agent up in Montana that really kept us pretty busy, and he asked us if we wanted to tour, and we said, sure, why not? So we bought an old school bus and renovated it and hit the road. The first tour he booked, we were going to start in Calgary, Alberta. We drove all the way up to the Canadian border and we couldn't get across thanks to a problem that our singer had with a past conviction, which I won't go into. But long story short, band had to drive back to Nebraska. Morale was terrible. We broke up. That was that. So I put out the word with the booking agent that I was looking for another band. I really didn't want to have to get a regular job. Sure enough, in a couple of weeks I get a call, and it was a promoter. And this guy was definitely a salesman. He sold me on this band. He could sell ice to an Eskimo. This band was called Ron LaSalle and the Twin Bullet Band. And they were a Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band tribute. And once again, this was back in the early 80s, and tribute bands were not really a big thing back then. As a matter of fact, I don't remember other tribute bands around that I can think of. Anyway, this guy made me a very good offer. He was going to fly me out to New York and was going to pay room, board, meals, and give me a nice weekly salary. It was pretty tempting. I really had to think about it. I told him I was going to sleep on it and call him back the next day. When I did sleep on it, I couldn't do it. I called him back the next day, said sorry, but it's just not my thing. And my reasoning for it was that back then I kind of felt like a tribute band was kind of taking another band's identity and profiting off of it. Thinking back on it, maybe I should have taken it, maybe I shouldn't have, I don't know, but I think my opinion has definitely softened a lot. I don't think a tribute band is necessarily a terrible thing now. In particular, there's a lot of bands that aren't out there anymore that people will never get a chance to see because they never had the chance. So tribute bands give people an opportunity to get a little bit of a slice of the pie of what was going on when that band was in their heyday. Starting off at number 10 on my list, also back in about the same time period, I was a big Aerosmith fan, and their first 4 albums to me are some of the best rock albums ever made. I just think that the songwriting was stellar. They were playing in Omaha, Nebraska, so I drove to see them, and lo and behold, they were not very good back then. They're pretty notorious for the days when they were taking a lot of drugs and drinking a lot, and that was one of those nights. Steven Tyler was so drunk on stage he could barely remember the lyrics for most of the songs. He actually was puking on the side of the stage a couple times, and he and Joe Perry were having a big argument on stage, and he walked up to his guitar and pulled on the strings as hard as he could, and the roadie had to bring him another guitar. So anyway, I never really got that opportunity to hear those Aerosmith songs the way I wanted to hear them. So my number 10 pick is Aerosmith Rocks, and they are a band out of Western Canada. Needless to say, they're an Aerosmith tribute band. They play all the hits. They play the old stuff. They play some of the new stuff. I'm more partial to the old stuff, but they do a very good job with all of it. I think they just do it to a T. They're not real huge on YouTube. They've only got like 634 subscribers last time I looked, which is kind of surprising to me, but I guess maybe they just haven't made that a focus. On Facebook, they have 76,000 fans, so I guess they've concentrated more on Facebook. But, hopefully this will give them kind of a kick in the rear. If people like Aerosmith, I hope they'll listen to them and give them a subscribe if they do like them. Moving right along, number 9, Martell and the Queen Celebration Live. Martell is from, once again, Canada, from Montreal, and he was around for a while, songwriting, some touring, playing in bands and things like that, and people always remarked how much he sounded like Freddie Mercury. At one point back in 2011, Roger Taylor from Queen decided to start up a Queen tribute project called the Ultimate Queen Celebration, and they put a call out for people to do audition videos. So Mark Martell did Somebody to Love on his video, put it on YouTube, and it went viral because he really does just, it's almost eerie how much he sounds like Freddie Mercury. And from what I understand, he doesn't really have to try to do it. It's just his natural voice. So he did get the part in the production, and they toured quite a bit. From what I understand, they went on American Idol. There's a video of that on YouTube if you want to search that out. So he did that, and then a while later they came out with the Bohemian Rhapsody movie, which I'm sure a lot of you have seen, and they needed somebody to do some Freddie Mercury vocals on that. Aside from what was already recorded on albums, they wanted to have some movie shots where he was singing live. Mark Martell's the first one they thought of, so he got the part in that. So if you've watched the movie, you may or may not know that you were listening to Mark on some of those vocals. Not all of them, but some of them. So listen to it and see if you can tell which ones he did or didn't do. Moving right along, number 8. The Brooklyn Charmers. They are a Steely Dan cover band out of Chicago, and they were started by Colin Petterick, and they are just a bunch of people that I think some of them are studio musicians, but they just love Steely Dan music, nothing more, and just decided to get together and recreate some of it. Just kind of a bare bones situation there. They don't have I think they have like 2 guitars, bass, drums, and keyboard player, but they really do a great job with some of these songs. They don't necessarily get the sounds note for note, but they just really capture the spirit of Steely Dan, that kind of laid back but very professional, jazzy kind of sound. Can do it, and they do it well. And I've listened to quite a few of their songs, and I really get some enjoyment from them, so I hope you do too. Number 7, the Analogs. And I've talked about these guys before in one of my videos on cover bands. They are a Beatles cover band, Beatles tribute band. They are Dutch, and they were formed around 2014. Bart Van Poppel is the mastermind behind this. He plays bass, keys, and vocals. He is on a mission to recreate some of this latter-day Beatles music from like 1966 on, when the Beatles stopped touring and just went in the studio and did all this experimenting and using studio musicians and orchestras and things like that. He's on a mission to recreate all of that. They've done whole albums at a time. They do the whole Magical Mystery Tour album, Sgt. Pepper, White Album, Revolver. I think probably the thing to remember about them is that they're not a Fab Four kind of cover band where they all dress up like Sgt. Pepper and come out and try to look like the Beatles and talk like the Beatles. They're just concerned with the music, and that's it. Period. End of story. And from all the tribute bands that I've listened to, and I think I've listened to most of them on YouTube, they are the closest to the Beatles, and that's what I think about when I want to hear a tribute band, is do they really sound like who they're supposed to sound like? So see what you think of them if you haven't already. Number 6, Mr. Jimmy. Mr. Jimmy is a Jimmy Page tribute, I guess you could say, and he has played in some Zeppelin tribute bands. That most notably was Led Zeppelin. You can find some of their stuff on YouTube. Mr. Jimmy is from Japan, and his real name is Akio Sakurai, and he spent many years in Japan doing Zeppelin tribute stuff there, and he finally decided to take it to LA, and he moved out there, and he caught the attention of a filmmaker there by the name of Peter Michael Dowd, and he did a documentary on him called Mr. Jimmy. It took, I think, a couple years to do it, but it was a very good documentary. It got a lot of attention at film festivals, won some awards, went to South by Southwest, etc. So that kind of brought him into the public limelight. The thing about him is that he looks like Jimmy, dresses like Jimmy, plays like Jimmy, and he captures the spirit of Jimmy's guitar playing, most importantly. He masters the style that Jimmy had. I hear some other Zeppelin bands that play very well, but they play more modernly. Jimmy Page had more, it was almost a little bit sloppy, his technique at times, not in a bad way, but he kind of was like falling down the stairs and landing on your feet kind of thing, and that's what Mr. Jimmy can do. If you haven't heard of him, check him out. I hope you like him. All right, we're halfway done, folks. Number 5, Brit Floyd. And once again, I've talked about these guys in my other video. They're probably the most well-known tribute band on here. If not, they're up there in the top 3, I'm sure. They were started by Damien Darlington. He had been in another Pink Floyd tribute band down in Australia, and he decided to start one in the UK. These guys are big production, big sound, big lights. If you really want to get the feel for what they're like, check out their videos filmed at Red Rocks in Colorado. A stunning cinematography job there. You know, it's just such a beautiful setting. And to hear them doing Pink Floyd with all the lights and everything, it's just really something that is to behold, let me tell you, a sight to behold. In addition, they had a real feather in their cap. David Gilmour showed up at one of their gigs and came backstage and talked to him for quite a while, and he was very impressed with the band, so much so that he sent them an invitation and they got to play for his birthday party, playing like an hour's worth of Pink Floyd music for David Gilmour, so can't beat that, right? That's pretty cool. Moving right along, number 4, Strange Kind of Women, and that's women with an E, plural. And they are a Deep Purple tribute band, and their song comes from the Deep Purple song Strange Kind of Woman, of course. And they are from Italy, and they were formed around 2017. They're all women, as the name would imply. They capture the spirit of Deep Purple. They don't, once again, play everything note for note, but they just kick some serious butt. You need to watch their videos if you haven't already. I think you'll be impressed. They'll do something like Burn, and they do burn through it. Let me tell you, they play like they mean it. They play like it's their own music. They play with balls, for lack of a better word. And I think all the women have their own side projects going. In particular, the singer Alteria, Alteria, has some things on YouTube that are kind of interesting that she's done in addition to this band. She has sung with some other bands, and she does her own stuff, and some of it's kind of experimental looking. It's pretty cool stuff. Check it out if you get a chance. Strange Kind of Women. Number 3. Once again, I've talked about these guys and women. Leonard and Friends from Russia. And they were formed by Leonid Vorobiev. And he wanted to do a YouTube video for a Chicago song a while back, and he couldn't find any transcripts for the horn parts. So he took it upon himself to go ahead and transcribe everything himself, which was kind of a labor of love for him because he just loved their music. And this video that he did very well on YouTube, so he was inspired, and out of that he went ahead and started up a band out of it. And they do mostly Chicago music, do a few other things. They do it all very well. Extremely popular. These guys have toured a lot. They tour around Europe. They tour America sometimes. And very rabid fan base. I've gotten a lot of comments on their fans, and a lot of them wanted to know why I didn't put them at number 1 on my cover band list. I have nothing bad to say about them, just not number 1, but one thing that did concern me about them was that they lost their longtime guitar player by the name of Sergey recently, and they replaced him with another guy who is also very good. But Sergey, I think he helped start the band, and he just really nailed the early Chicago guitar sounds and guitar parts. So the new guy is good, but just doesn't quite have that same knack from what I've seen. So I was sorry to see that, but I'm sure they'll do just fine without him. They have a new original composition called A Speck of Dust. Very cool. It's kind of progressive. It's not just a 3-minute pop song. It's got a lot of changes in it. They brought in an orchestra to play with it, and I was really impressed by it. If you get a chance, give it a listen and see what you think. I'm always glad to see a tribute band branch out and do something besides just that, because I think it can be a good springboard to further their career if they really make use of it. Anyway, number 2, and this one is near and dear to my heart, mostly because I am a huge Toto fan. And this is a Toto tribute band called Child's Anthem, which is the name of a Toto song if you're not familiar. These guys are all studio musicians in Nashville. In particular, their singer Keith Landry nails the Toto stuff, and he should, because it's kind of interesting, because at one point back in the 80s he toured with Toto as a background singer. So he knows better than anybody what goes on in the Toto camp, I'm sure. But Toto in particular is a tough beast to handle, because they have had different lead vocalists over the years. In particular, the two biggest ones were Bobby Kimball and Joseph Williams. And they did have kind of different sounds, and Keith is able to sound like both of them some kind of way. I don't know how he does it, but and this band started out, they would be in the studio, and during downtime they would just start taking off playing a Toto song, and they all chimed in together and did it, and they all found out how much they all love Toto, so they started this band, and it's really tough music to play, and they do a good job with it. So number one. And before I tell you the name of this band, I will say that this band has something extra, really, that I think none of the other bands have, and that's why I chose them as number one. First off, they're a top-notch tribute band. They don't really consider themselves a tribute band, but they kind of are, because they play a lot of Rush music. And they're called Why Not? And they're mainly the brainchild of Billy Alexander, the guitar player. And early in his career, he wrote a Rush-like song, and he called it Why Not, as kind of a play on words of YYZ, the Rush song. So when he started the Rush band, he thought it would be a good name for them. Early on, he got together with a bass player named Tim, and they decided to do a whole Side of the Hemispheres album and do a video from it. And they were looking for a singer, and they happened to find Rocky Kunar, who was a local singer-songwriter in the Southern California area, and they asked her to learn this whole Side of the Hemispheres album, and she did, and she knocked it out of the park. So they liked the way it turned out. They did a few more Rush songs on videos, and it really took off, really caught on YouTube. So some little light bulbs went off in their head, and they went ahead and figured they better start a band out of it. And Billy is very creative, in addition to the other members of the band, and they started writing songs, and next thing you know, they've got 2 complete albums that they've released in addition to the Rush music. The music, you wouldn't necessarily know they're a Rush tribute band listening to it, because it doesn't sound much like Rush. In all honesty, Rocky kind of has the ability to sing like herself and sing like Geddy Lee when she wants to, but she doesn't sound like Geddy all the time. And one thing that I think is kind of interesting is that Rocky, to my eyes, looks kind of like Geddy Lee, like she could be related to him, like his little sister or something. So, as far as I know, they're not related, but she sure looks that way to me, and she sure sings like him. And she can pull off the early Rush stuff, like out the first couple albums when Geddy Lee was just screaming and singing as high as he could, not thinking about the future when he'd have to try to pull that stuff off. She does it with ease, and she really sounds like him. Yeah, they get my vote for the number one pick of tribute bands. If you haven't heard of them, check them out. Check out their original music and see what you think of that. I think it's top notch, and I wish him well, and I hope this video kind of helps him out in that respect. So anyway, that's my picks. My name is John Lang. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you next time. Bye.